When a 12-time All-Star and 4-time scoring champion requests to be traded from his current team, you'd expect all other NBA franchises to enter an all-out bidding war to win the player's services. However, when Kevin Durant demanded his trade from the Brooklyn Nets on June 30th, the response was unexpected. It threw us all off guard, including KD himself, who has started to lose control of his own narrative, and now has to resort to underhanded methods to ensure his departure from Brooklyn. These methods lead us to ask the question, is Kevin Durant bullying the Nets? The beginnings in Brooklyn. When the Brooklyn Nets front office decided to push all their chips into the middle of the table to offer Kevin Durant a contract, they had to offer one to his friend Kyrie Irving in order to get Kevin Durant's signature. The Nets had hoped the duo would be a 1-2 punch that could spearhead the franchise to championship success. However, an unfortunate series of injuries and circumstances never allowed the pairing to reach the heights the organization had hoped for. They rarely even took the court together, only 58 times out of a potential 247 games. Both undoubtedly had their say in the Nets trading the franchise's future to bring James Harden to Brooklyn, and even with the trio of KD, Kyrie, and Harden, the Nets still couldn't leave their mark in the playoffs. The season ended in a discouraging way, but KD declared he would be staying put with the Nets for the time coming. After all, the ink is barely dry on his new monstrous $194 million contract. The trade request. But just as the free agency period was about to begin this offseason, the news broke that KD had formally requested a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. The NBA world was sent into a frenzy. The wake of the announcement brought questions about the mechanics of the trade. What team will win the bidding war? What are teams willing to give up to get KD? And where is he willing to play? But why does Durant want out? A standout rumor was his disappointment in the treatment of his friend Kyrie Irving. This would fit the narrative reported that Durant grew frustrated because he thought the Nets front office had not taken the time to understand and get to know Kyrie. But let's make no mistake about the situation. Kyrie walked all over the Nets organization since joining a few years ago. During the 2020-21 season, Irving went AWOL and took personal time in the middle of the season, leaving his team to fill the gap in his absence. And in this past season, due to being unvaccinated and a New York City workers mandate which requires indoor workers to be vaccinated, Kyrie only played in 29 games. His seemingly constant absence from the team even frustrated James Harden before he forced his way out with the trade, and he isn't exactly known for his dedication and commitment either. And maybe this, combined with KD realizing that the 2022 roster doesn't look close to a championship team, he wants to chase his third NBA title. Upping the ante. As the days and weeks passed, the interest in Durant was minimal. Teams trading for him knew they would need to offer the Nets multiple first-round draft picks in exchange for Durant, picks that are vital to the future of a franchise. A newer, younger, and better Kevin Durant could be found with those draft picks. It's a heavy price and a big risk to take. The Nets also took back control of their team and refused to allow KD an easy walkout. They made their trade requirements clear. They are not going to accept an offer of late-round draft picks, or an offer that includes them receiving a rotational-type player in exchange. They are only going to be looking at serious offers. Durant was no longer the captain of his own ship. He was losing leverage and the Nets were calling his bluff, so Durant upped the ante in his bid to depart the team. He met with Nets owner Joseph Tsai in London and made him a cutthroat ultimatum: trade me or fire Steve Nash and Sean Marks. What makes this demand ludicrous is Kevin Durant has previously defended and endorsed Steve Nash as a head coach. And turning his back on GM Sean Marks is even more baffling. Sean Marks has repeatedly met demands from Kevin Durant, from agreeing to take on Kyrie Irving and all his baggage, the James Harden trade, and signing DeAndre Jordan to a $40 million deal. These were all Durant's demands. Marks also dumped Jarrett Allen and Karis LeVert in order to formulate the Kevin Durant vision. And let's not forget the sudden firing of Kenny Atkinson, who helped the Nets to the playoffs for the first time in 4 years because KD and Kyrie didn't want to play for him. So to put all this in the simplest terms possible, KD had a bunch of requests that had to be met by Sean Marks before he would sign. These demands were met. Whilst KD was playing for the Nets, he had a bunch of demands to keep him happy. These were all met. But now when his vision didn't work out the way he hoped and planned out, he's abandoning ship and he's willing to pull down the entire franchise if need be. The ultimatum puts Joe Tsai between a rock and a hard place, one that really pictures KD as the bad guy, as a bully almost. Nash and Marks haven't done anything to deserve being fired. Sure, Nash made some questionable calls during the playoffs, but definitely not enough to justify firing him, especially when the guy calling for his head is the one who wanted him there in the first place. And Marks has been really solid for the organization since his appointment in 2016. Good guys in those positions are hard to come by, but not as hard to find as a Kevin Durant type player. There are approximately 450 players in the NBA. Kevin Durant is in the top 1% in terms of on-the-court play. You just can't let a rare player like that walk away, can you? So what does Joe Tsai do? The decision. Well, according to his Twitter account, Joe Tsai is ready to move on without Durant, as he expresses support for his coaching and front office staff. But is this the right decision? Those with a neutral view will be happy with Tsai's statement, happy that they're unwilling to relinquish complete control of their franchise to an individual player. There will be people happy to see Durant pushed to the curb with his tail tucked between his legs. But those people may not see the greatness of KD. Sure, he's not played a full season in recent years and has a lengthy injury history, but when he's on the court, his talent speaks for itself. The Nets are also staring down a barrel of a very lackluster roster next year. The only standout would be Ben Simmons, and he's not capable of carrying a franchise on his back like KD is. This is what the team signed up to when they went all out for Durant. They knew he was difficult to deal with. They knew he was never happy, and they knew he was a bit of a diva. But what all-stars aren't? Steve Nash and Sean Marks can't lead an average team to the playoffs and beyond, but KD can lead an average coach and an average GM into the postseason. Overall, KD has made strenuous demands on the Nets organization to match his vision for the team, and when they haven't worked, he's blaming everyone but himself, stabbing the front office in the back. He's taking his ball and going home. The mess needs to be cleaned up by training camp, which starts in September. Either way, the Brooklyn Nets will be an entirely different team next year. If you were in Joe Tsai's shoes, what would you do? Trade away a generational talent, or fire your head coach and GM in order to appease him? And do you believe Kevin Durant is bullying the Nets to get his own way? Let us know in the comments below.